Good morning. I was invited to participate in the symposium to share a few of my experiences. I have 50 years now in the field of motivation, psychology. This is a very interesting field, and sometimes a few people ask me, is it possible to have a change in attitude, to make significant changes in people? And I always answer, definitely yes, this is possible. Okay, three main points that will summarize my experience. That's what I'll start with, and then I will mention a few theories about motivation that can be applied by you, by each one of you in a particular field. So, the first main point or conclusions that I have reached along my life is that you can achieve a lot when you have a proper leadership. The key is the leadership in any level, from the owner, from the director, from coming from managers or promoters, in every level, including the people from the bases, which is oftentimes the people who do all the hard job. But I would like to point out the importance of leadership. A leader talks talks the talk and walks the walk. Sometimes a leader that does not lead to motivation is someone who does not walk the walk. The ones that have the power of conviction is the ones that do as they say and that have this, and not this is not only talking about water, it is about motivating towards behavior or an attitude. And we have to take values into account. These have to be planted from when we're young. These are the ones that are going to make significant changes in our country, starting from our households. And within organizations, people talk about mission a lot. What's the mission? What's their vision? Meaning long term, where are they going? What do they try to achieve? And then immediately we have people talking about values. Values in organization. Values start from the house, the people that the values that are taught to us by our parents, and further on, the organizations to which we belong. The other big aspect that I consider very important for making a significant change, for having people motivated, for having a change in attitude, especially positive attitudes, is teamwork. I have never heard of an organization that hasn't worked with teamwork to achieve success. If it's even if it's a small organization or even a sports organization, I don't know what your favorite teams are, but it's it has been seen that the star-studded team, they have the biggest payrolls, but if they do not work as a team, they do not move forward. They do not succeed. And those teams that are simple, but that really get the idea of teamwork, get the values from the coach, they get better results, even if their payrolls are not that high. Now, talking about industry or organizations, we must foster teamwork. I always say that this is as a waterfall. It starts on the basic levels and then it goes down and it impregnates the other levels. And these are the main points that I see. It's leadership, teamwork, and the third one is the organizational environment. This environment where people develop. And in this kind of environment, communication is key. There should be a common code to understand the rules of the game, to understand what is expected of a person, how a person will be assessed, to understand why someone is being paid or why they are committed to a certain thing. Many times this is unclear to many people and people get confused. They don't really know what is expected. So these 3 points are basic from my perspective, and that is leadership, teamwork, and the organizational environment. That there's consistency all throughout the organization. Now I'll present 3 theories with which I have worked in the past years of all years I've been working, and then I'll tell a few stories about what has happened in the field. And at last we'll leave out 10 minutes for questions, any doubts. I will try to answer them gladly. And if I can't answer, then you can help me with your own experience. The first theory I like to mention is the most popular one, is Maslow's pyramid. Abraham Maslow was a psychologist who establishes that heartfelt needs are the main influences in an individual's behavior. This is what one feels. If you feel sick, you will be motivated to ask for help or to get better. If you're hungry, then you'll look for food. And this is what Maslow states. We have to realize in what level people are moving in order to push the right buttons of motivation. Once they were talking about, there was this story about computers being sent to this rural area to help people work better, but they didn't even have electricity. So they said, well, this is not consistent at all. And so they, instead, when these computers were sent, where these needs were covered, they had lighting, they had electricity, they had the basic needs, these computers could work properly. Maslow states that when there's a particular need, this determines the individual's behavior in terms of motivation, priorities, and actions. Maslow also says that people must always think of our needs and think of in what order our needs are being satisfied. And in the next slide, we see that only the unfulfilled needs are the main resources of motivation. That is, that which is not satisfied is what's going to move people to find ways to solve it. So this motivates you to change to a certain behavior. Motivation works like an inner spring that moves you to a certain direction. And this is some kind of behavior. So if you feel hungry, you try to satisfy your needs, not only in terms of security and safety, but in many terms. Maslow believes there's a natural process in which individuals satisfy their needs in a rising or in a bottom up perspective. You have to cover step by step out of the 5 steps. They're all necessary, but people have to be aware of them. In the first step, or the first stance, the basic one, we have the physiological needs. I don't know if you can read it. And the first step in Maslow's pyramid is the physiological needs. What is this? Well, I'll explain. It's 5 of them. After this one is security, to be safe. For example, to have food, to be safe, to be warm. And once you have these basic needs, you have the need of security. This is not only a job or a project or a salary. This is being able to produce for one's family. And this is when you're looking to have all of this permanently, that they will never lack all of these needs. So that's when people look for jobs, for very sturdy organizations that they will always have a job, and they're motivated to say, I'm keeping my job. And this happens nowadays. We know that this crisis that's currently taking place affected everyone's pocket, and it was kind of disorienting. So everyone who was employed often heard take care of your job because there was a lot of people unemployed. So when you had a job, you at least had your basic needs satisfied, and the next step was to keep it. So this invokes this attitude of responsibility, of working well. Every time that we think of someone, if you ask, let's say, your friend, do you know anyone who can help me in this position? And usually the answer is, oh, yes, I know someone. He's very responsible. And the other way around, when they answer, well, yes, I know someone who can help you, but he's not very reliable. And then, well, you don't want to have anything to do with that person. So this is very clear for every one of us how someone who's reliable, that means that's accountable for their actions. And once we have satisfied this need, you have the need of belonging. And then step number 3 is social behaviors, where people look to belong in certain groups or associations, or where they're identified within a certain group. I will talk about it in a while. The fourth one are the needs of the ego. That's when you not don't want to belong. You don't only want to belong, but you want to stand out in that group, in that particular association. And this will motivate you to feel that that you stand out, that you have a special place. And then this is the stage where Maslow says that we're all going to die. This is the self-development, which is a full realization of the potentials that we have, of our talents. Each and every one of us who are here have certain talents, right? Maybe specific talents, they're not similar one from each other, but we all have this talent. And that when when the time has come, someone will ask you, what did you do with the talents that you were giving? And that's how you answer how consistent you were and how responsible you were using your talents. And this is what you call self-development. This is the top part of the pyramid, where you need to be fulfilled, not only in the work areas, but only in the other 4 areas of work that it would do you good if you wrote them down. Because we're always in conflict with our family. You're taking time from here and there, family time, quality time, and use it for work. But, and this is not good. We have to devote time to our kids, to the wife, and this is one of the main conflicts that may arise in the second step. And when they talk about self-development for people, it's not only on the physical aspect, but in the emotional and spiritual aspect. And on the physical issue is related to drinking water, lots of water, clean water, especially. People say that 2 liters is enough. So take good care of it because we have to take 2 liters every day to survive.
Otra cosa también es la alimentación. Estamos viendo que en el país está diciendo que tenemos que
Another issue I like to discuss is food.
en primer lugar,
They say,
pero
I've heard that
niños están sobrepasados de peso.
we take the first place in the world of overweight children. So this points out
La
to
alimentación
a lack of education regarding the physical
son alimentos sanos.
identity. This is a lot of junk food,
Alimentarnos más con tu sentido común.
and we have to really start eating properly,
Tenemos
with a common sense, to know what we're putting in our mouths.
desde el punto de vista físico,
We have to teach kids
desde el punto de vista de ejercicio y desde el punto de vista
how to
también
fulfill their
emocional.
needs emotionally,
El
physically,
ser humano,
because emotions in the human being have been
emociones son un motor
relegated.
en el aspecto de
However, emotions are
emociones nos mueven
a very important drive
a o una conducta.
towards behavior. They can either motivate us to behavior A or behavior B.
Organizar las fuerzas
For a long time, psychologists have discovered that the forces of evil could be aligned to do evil. And likewise,
entonces
with the good feelings, you can use all your good feelings and do good things. And we have to decide which sides we're on. And to be consistent with this, to identify, to relate with all these good emotions, and this starts with the family and with ourselves.
la otra área que con frecuencia descuidamos es el área social.
The other area that's often neglected is the personal aspect. I've talked about work, about family. Now we're going to talk about the social part.
Habla de no solo las relaciones
And this is not only about the interactions with the community, but generally speaking about being in touch with what's happening around us. In our zone of impact, this is where we are working. We need to be sure that we're fostering a common good, that we're motivating welfare and progress,
y de los valores.
as well as education and values.
Quinta área que es como un eje de una carreta,
And last but not least is the fifth area. That's like a wheelbarrow, let's say. It's the spiritual area.
vivimos tantas prisas y tantas
Often we forget
se olvidan de la parte
about many things. We forget about the spiritual part due to the haste of the day to day. But
se refiere a la creencia.
however, all of us here believe in a spirit. This is not about the belief itself. If we believe in God, well, this is a very important drive. Be it as you may that you conceive God. It is said that God lives inside ourselves, so we should cultivate this spirit.
En base a meditación,
And this is done with meditation, with prayer,
cultiva en base a ser altos en el camino. Como este año
with,
están haciendo ustedes
and this is also cultivated through
para juntar
stopping and reflecting, which is what you're doing right now. Is
entre ustedes
is how this could be regarded, that you're brainstorming, you're feeding each other, so to speak, through ideas, and you can develop your inner being.
que un sociólogo
This is something that a sociologist
del
said
área de Cuernavaca
that worked in Cuernavaca,
que se llamaba Fromm, es una gente
and he worked with this
desde siglos.
person who was called Fromm. He was a very prominent psychologist from last year. And his name was Hardman. And all of the rest of the psychologists that worked with him found people
Esa espíritu
that
mucho más
whose spirit was,
menos rebuscados,
let's say,
más auténticos.
pure. These were authentic people, these were reliable people. And
En donde aplicamos
they were amazed
de valores
to see how all this test they had been running for values and all these types of tests, and they said that all these people that were well balanced came from a very humble background that many people would frown upon. But then there's this philosophy, this way of thought about life, that it's much healthier and much balanced and, well, just simpler. We like to make things complicated with technology or big words. But truth be told, simple things are usually the best ones. And these are the 5 areas where we should look for development in, as Maslow says. Now, in this slide, we can see that this progression through a hierarchy of needs is regarded as climbing a mountain, where the person has to experience the feeling of security when stepping on a layer in order to pass on to the next layer. So we need to have this basic foundation according to the layer where the person is. And as they feel safer within each layer, they can move on to the next one. Even if it's in social relationships or a special contribution in their group or self development. But if someone is hungry, do you think they can think of the top of the pyramid? Do you think that they can, if someone needs security, could think on the top of the pyramid? Of course not. The first thing they're going to think about is their belly and their family. Most of us are concerned about security, and this is what we look for. And this we should use motivation. We have to come back from self-development to, and we have to move back and really coming to terms with the fact that we need security on the streets, on your jobs, in your house, everywhere you go. You just need it. So this motivation level has been lowered. We're now looking for security, not just the basic needs, but security. And in this scale of Maslow's pyramid, it goes up and down. It's not static. It's not once you've gone through a layer, you just stay there and you can never go back. You go up and down. It's a very dynamic stage. If we consider human needs in depth, then we will have a powerful instrument to motivate and to drive people. That's Maslow's pyramid theory. Now, in the next slide, we can see the second theory I'd like to present to you. That's from a psychologist who passed away, very famous psychologist, Friedrich Herzberg, who studied the motivation of employees at the workplace, and he found something quite interesting. He found that productivity and satisfaction were strictly related to work conditions. That is, he found that there were two main fields regarding behavior. Number one, motivators. And number two, hygiene factors. So for many years, people thought that the economical aspect, as a salary or a paycheck, was the main motivation. And many people believe that if they get raises, if they have more than the minimum wage, they thought that this aspect was going to be the biggest motivator in such a way that if you gave more money to people, if you paid them better, they could do more. However, Dr. Herzberg finds that this is not true, that if you get a raise, you're motivated for 1 or 2 weeks, maybe a week at tops, or a month. But then you forget. You just take it for granted. So the economical factor as an incentive, as in pushing people to do something, was found faulty. There were other factors that he found, and he called them motivators. For example, in the hygiene factors, They mentioned
mucho frío, pues la gente
labor
con muchos ruidos,
conditions.
la gente se queja,
Many
pero no
people
por eso va a sentirse motivado.
complain, but
Si das algún cambio
that does not make
en
them
el clima,
motivated.
pudiera ser
There's a change in the environment now that we're living
generalizada, pudiera
this
ser que
season of
coincide
heat,
con un sistema que te permite trabajar
and this
a
enables
temperatura más
people.
baja.
Now we have
Pero no
certain
quiere
systems
decir
that
que con
enable
eso la
people
gente
to
ya
work
está
at a
más
certain temperature, but
hemos
this
visto
does not make
muchas
people happier or more motivated. We have seen this happen